Okay, this video is by request by a YouTuber. They wanted to see my engine bay, a little more details, so I've tried to personally keep it as stock as possible in here. I mean, stock looking, let's put it that way. The battery is still in the factory spot. I'm still using the factory coolant reservoir. The ECU, the Moz ECUs in there, to actually have the Haltech in there as well. It makes it easy. All the wiring loom comes right in the same spot. It's still got the ABS and all that stuff. However, I have the fuse pulled for drifting, but it's all still technically here and technically works. I've tried to keep the engine bay as stock as possible. I'm using the stock radiator position. It is not a stock radiator. It's a Koyorad radiator, but it's basically a factory replacement. The intake is an AEM cold air intake for an RX8. It barely kind of makes it up to the same spot as the K24 excuse me, housing. So this is a K24A2 out of a 2009 TSX, Japanese imported. The wiring harness is off of an automatic Honda K24 of some kind that came to a friend of mine, because my engine didn't come with all the wiring harness. The rest of it was made by, the rest of the harness was made by, tuned by Sean is the name he goes by. It was the kit he makes for a K24 swap for an RX8. And I ordered it with a Haltech Elite 1500, which is what's in the box here. The steering, it was the biggest issue of all of the swap. I read online you could use an IS300 little thing to adapt it. There's not enough light in here to really show you it right now, but I did order that, but we had to cut that completely in half and like weld it on to the spline that would fit the rest of the Mazda and get the length right, because I used a Collins adapter kit. Collins Racing, or I think is what they're called, but Collins makes an adapter kit for the K24 to bolt to the RX8 transmission. I believe it also bolts to the BMW ZF, or I don't know what it's called, some BMW transmission. So they provided the motor mounts, they provided the mounts for the power steering rack to move forward, and the something else. And the mounts move the steering rack forward worked. They're great. I had to, on my setup, my that lower wheel, sorry, I'm tired. The wheel on the crank there was actually rubbing on the belt section on the power steering that's down there, because it had to come forward. So that had to get ground out of the power steering a ways. The subframe, I cannot show you through here, but we had to cut the top of the subframe off and basically reinforce it with a flat plate to make room for the oil pan, because the oil pan was hitting the subframe and not letting the engine come all the way forward. Obviously the firewall, you can see there's a section cut there, and a lot of this, it was sledgehammered back basically, and as far as was needed, you know, it's just barely got clearance. And honestly, I had to switch around the connections for the cam sensors in the back, and there's barely enough room to even get the sensors on, but there's room, it fits after a lot of gentle pounding and massaging. I do have the heater core hooked up, so we still have heat. There is no air conditioning. The AC pump would have been right down in there, which is right in the middle of where some power steering goes. One of the big issues I had, and still have honestly, is this coolant line coming off of the thermostat right here. Because of where it is, it comes out and back towards the driver's seat, you know, this way of the engine bay, and I had to take it and make it do a full turn, come back, so that it could come in. You can barely see it around there, that hose. And the only way I could do that is it had to come all the way down through here and come back and then plug into the bottom of the radiator down there, was with that metal flexible tubing, hot rod tubing. Here, I got a chunk of it over here. There we go. Yeah, this stuff. So this is what's my coolant hose. This is a piece I cut off of it. It's literally this stuff, because I could bend it and move it and manipulate it. Not very much, but I could do it enough to make this weird curve come up and around, go around, and then into the radiator. So someday I might get like a custom made sweet ass, you know, I don't know, pipe for that, or get some silicone pipe. There are people told me ways you can reform rubber pipes and make them shape the way you want to. So I'll eventually do that. But for now, it's not leaking, it's working. The radiator tube for the top that goes down into the thermostat, I have no clue what that was actually for. The guys at the auto parts store basically let me go through their entire thing of tubes. I ended up buying a couple that didn't work, that I don't have the receipt for anymore, because I was trying to do some weird ass curve shit. And but anyway, eventually I figured out how to make something work. Bleeding the air out of this thing has been a nightmare. There's so many damn curves down there. I have had huge air pockets in this cooling system, but eventually I'm getting her done. Yeah, I mean, there's not much else to show in the engine bay. It's literally just a stock K24A2 with some 1320 race headers that are actually designed for the K-swap on an S2000. I bought them right off of eBay, and it says S2000 K-swap. I was like, whatever. If they don't have an RX8 K-swap, I'll make it work. I'll bend them, I'll smash them. That was the easiest part of the whole install. They literally just bolted on and fit perfectly underneath the car. They fit right where the RX8 exhaust was. There's a little bit of a kind of an angle in my connection where the mid pipe meets the exhaust, but it's not more than the coupler was capable of, you know, sealing. It's perfect. So that was a sweet part of the install. One of the things I had to do here, because I went with a Skunk Racing intake manifold, Skunk 2, I plan on putting a turbo on this, and that's why I bought this manifold. So for now, I had to also get a Skunk 2 adapter to adapt it down, but it's because it's got a big old opening on that thing. But eventually I'll get that all the way I want. But I need to make sure this car is running as close to 100% as I can before I ever stick some boost on it. So I'm going to run it this way for probably a year or so, get my finances back in order with some other stuff. And yeah, eventually go boost it. I'm ready. But for now, we're still kind of mid-tune. The Haltech Elites, you know, I've got its long-term fuel trimming thing learned and going. And I want to eventually take it like dyno tuning and get the timing figured out and make sure it's still reliable, but yet making plenty of power. So for that one person that wanted to see my engine bay, this is about all there is to it. And hope that was some information for you guys. And thanks for watching, and I'll look forward to answering and reading any comments if you have them. Thank you. Bye.